Welcome again to my Tens and Tens of Friends. It is me, Teacher TJ. Today I will be reading a Reddit post, and it is from PSPHH or PS, from the Ask Old People Advice subreddit, and it's titled, To Those Who Cut Their Parents Off, How Do You Feel Once You're Old? Any regrets? So, after 31 years of feeling completely unworthy of love, wow, I've unworthy? Hmm. I've really reached the point where the only thing left to do is protect my peace. I've done LC, I've attempted NC with the person who gave birth to me. Okay, so I've done limited contact, I've done no contact with the person who gave birth to me. And every single time it failed because she would come back with fake apologies, crocodile tears, and whatever manipulation she thought would work that moment. Okay, so I guess I'm starting to see why they feel like they don't deserve love. Because when your parents aren't giving it to you, it's like, okay, so what's wrong with me, I guess. But I believe there's a point in time where, well, and I shouldn't say she because I don't know who is, but this person probably feels like they don't deserve love because their parent isn't showing love. Parents, get it together. And just to be clear, her abuse wasn't only emotional and mental, it was physical too. Aw. I effing hate her for what she did to me. She used to beat the out of me in front of people like it was nothing. She once poured milk over my head because I didn't drink it. And the reason I didn't drink it was because I'm lactose intolerant. That's not funny, but wow. Which she never believed. It made me sick and she didn't care. Milk expensive. No, I'm just kidding. She has always portrayed herself as the victim in every situation. She only ever came to me and my little family when she wanted or needed something. Never to genuinely check in, never to give support, just to take. And here's the part that still makes my blood boil. She sold the land that was supposed to be my inheritance from my grandpa after my dad passed. I was the one entitled to it. And what did she use the money for? She used freaking lawyer to even make me sign it. It's pretty much already sold whenever I got the paperwork to go meet up with her ex-boyfriend. I wish I was joking. So she sold the land to go meet her boyfriend. Where he live at in cause land for a ride? Okay. At this point, her tears mean nothing. Her apologies mean nothing. I blocked her on everything and I'm done. But I know how these types work. She's already in the process of sending her flying monkeys my way to tell you how you need to talk to your mama because that's your mama. I don't subscribe to that. The longest that I was in no contact with her was 6 months after I gave birth to my second child. She cried and apologized, and I thought things would be different, but nope. For anyone who's been through this, how long did it take before they actually stopped trying to bother you after going no contact? And do you regret it once you are old? I know everyone's situation is different, but I'm trying to mentally prepare myself for whatever comes next, and I don't want to fall into her trap anymore. And I would have to say, I am so sorry to hear that because you think that the person who birthed you is the person that you'll love forever and that'll love you forever. And sometimes that's just not the case. But overall, I would say yes, absolutely. Protect your peace and only deal with those who show that they love you and appreciate you because to make yourself be around someone who clearly has no care or love for you, you're only setting yourself up to be hurt or used. So definitely the A. Okay. Is this user's name? Replies saying similar childhood. I cut my mother out of my life when I was 30 after multiple times of thinking I owed her something as my mother because that's what we're groomed to believe. It finally hit me that I was a mother too. My kids deserve better than having her in their lives. Maybe I couldn't save myself from her, but I wasn't going to expose them to her toxicity. I used to have regular nightmares, where she and I would have physical fights and I was fighting for my life. Within months, I never had that nightmare again. Wow. So, yeah, cutting her off might have been the best thing for that person. She died a year or so ago. I don't think there was a service. Yikes. They didn't go. But I wouldn't have gone anyway. I forgave her as much as I could for my own sake, so I wasn't carrying around the baggage. That said, in my heart and brain, I knew she was what she was, and no relationship with her would ever be good for me or my family. You can break the cycle. I had a friend who basically had a pretty toxic relationship with her mom. And it's like every time she spoke to her, they had some sort of argument. And although, or her and her mom was always at odds. And I would be like, why do you welcome her into your life if you feel like she's such this toxic person? Like, if she's doing all that you say that she's doing, why do you keep setting yourself up for failure when you know who she is? So I would say, I would have to agree. You can break the cycle and you don't have to accept terrible treatment from someone just because they're your parents. The original poster replied to that response and said, "Yep, that's the mantra I hold to. My therapist once asked me, 'Do you want your child to feel like they owe you?' I've been blessed with amazing kids. The fact that I can recognize how much I'm able to do not to pass my trauma on to them makes it easier to let go of the resentment I have for her. I don't have to care about her getting older or about the day she eventually passes. I can accept that her trauma isn't mine to carry. Thanks." Because it's not. Definitely the A says, "I love what your therapist said." Sage Brush ID replies and says, "I'm one of the lucky ones. My mom never bothered me after I went no contact. I didn't tell her I never wanted to hear from her again. I just stopped responding to her nonsense. Same with all my siblings, dang, who treated me no better than my mom. Wow. I'm 75 now. Your mama's still kicking? Okay. The only regret is that I didn't cut her out of my life years and years sooner. I just couldn't imagine my kids cutting me off. Like, dang. But I couldn't imagine myself pouring milk on my child's head because they didn't want to drink it. Yikes. Like, some people really have it in their mind that because they're the parent, you have to allow that their children must allow them to treat them terribly, and that's crazy. If you have children or plan to have them, you have an obligation to protect them from her. No contact will do that. Outrageous swing 270 says, "This is a very complex question. My father died at the age of 89 and I was 54. I had no contact with him for the last 24 years or so, and he never really stopped trying to get in touch with me. He never understood my reasons for not wanting a relationship with him. I told him that I did not want to talk to him while he was drinking, and he never fully quit. Damn, he probably shouldn't have quit. He made it to 89. Very clear. I told him very clearly that he had been abusive, and he denied it. He probably was drunk both times. I told him very clearly that he had been abusive and he denied it. I told him that he had never been there for me when I needed him. And when he was there, he frightened me and he had no empathy. He said he was sorry, but he never changed his behavior. So you did a good one by cutting him off, because why should you want to continue to be around someone who clearly does not want to change their ways? I told him on his but that I had tried as best as I could to forgive him while he was alive, and I acknowledged that we may very well see each other in another incarnation since we couldn't resolve things in his lifetime. I don't think he understood me then either. I regret the loss of connection with the extended family. I regret that I wasn't ready to have children of my own when I was able. I don't necessarily regret my actions around my relationship with my father. I just wish it hadn't been so effing hard." I hope that person can let go. The OP says, "Thank you for sharing this. It really does sound incredibly hard. And your reasons for keeping distance make total sense. That's the thing, they made it so hard while they were the one that's supposed to teach us about the world. Maybe for sure there's a lesson in this. Left Wing SH says, I haven't seen my father in 15 years, and before that, only twice in the preceding 15. He's an old man now, if he's still alive, and I'm nearing 60. I have no regrets. He is slash was not a good person. I know now that he was broken, but that is not, nor was not, my responsibility to absorb. My life before I made the decision was full of anxiety around him. My life after was full of peace. I never think about him or what ifs. It was the right decision. A Fike says, I stopped talking to my mom maybe 15 years ago now. She was the same way. I was around 30 years old and I wish I did it sooner. So many years wasted trying to earn her love by trying to be a better and better, but come to the realization the better I did, the more jealous she became and tried to knock me down a peg or two by making me feel insignificant and childlike. No, thank you. I really hope that all of the people in this post dodged the feeling of trying to earn anyone else's love by not being able to earn their parents, because I know that's a thing. Rufus says, I could have written what you wrote, lawyers and all. Went no contact 15 years ago. We actually celebrate the day when I last saw or spoke to my mother, and I have zero regret. Stand firm. Don't beat around the bush. Make it abundantly clear she isn't to attempt any contact. Anything in her circle comes around, be very firm that they are to stay away from you and your family and leave. Don't entertain these a-holes. Well, I kicked friends out of my wedding for being spies. Yikes. Next, therapy. Read The Body Keeps the Score and find someone that, I heard that book a lot. I'm gonna have to put that in my audible books. And find someone that does EMDR. Holy F, does it suck going through it, but holy F is life better after. I can't emphasize enough how much it helps. You got this. Stay strong. She will never love you, and she's proven it time and time again. Stop putting yourself through that and come over to a world where the sun shines and there aren't any witches or flying monkeys. Also, I just finished the 21-day happiness challenge. Very helpful. I wish you the best. ZPLQ7957 says, can you share more about your EMDR experience? And Rufus underscore Xavier underscore SR says the process is pretty simple. You identify troubling events from your past and then you reprocess them while following a light with your eyes. I told my wife it's like having to cross streams and sometimes rivers to get to a much better place. I still have the memories, but they are often amiss and I can't quite grasp them. It's weird. But like I said, holy F to fit, do I feel better. I'm not in a constant fight or flight mode. My shoulders are relaxed, finally. Only took 56 years. Ask if would you like to know more. Edit to add is there were a crap ton of terrible memories that I had repressed that came bubbling up during the process. So weird. They're muted now. Unique detective 234 says, never cut mine out. Biggest regret of my life. Now they have passed and I am old. Nothing to be done about it. Just regrets. Parents, y'all got to do better. Yikes. Vast Perspective 6794 says, I cut my mom and stepdad out about 2 years ago. No regrets. I'll send flowers. At least y'all gonna get flowers though when y'all pass. Bad Guy Busters 2020 says, no regrets. I wish it didn't have to happen, but I no longer allow toxicity to cause havoc on my nervous system / mental health. I did not realize how much it affected me until I was out of it for a year. The difference is almost unreal. It wasn't an easy decision. It happened though decades of chances, attempts to improve things, requests for emotional growth, EQ, basic human decency and respect for me as an adult, request for some acknowledgement of turmoil and chaos, understanding of the negative consequences of perpetual manipulative strategies, including causing multiple problems at my job for years, etc. Nothing ever improved. No energy was put into listening, etc. It's as if the desire was to remain in a toddler mentality. I was low contact, no contact, low contact again, and it increased it gradually when I thought it was better, only to get dragged back into hell again. Then it was no contact again. I've held that for years, no regrets. ETA, this last go round, it took me about 1.5 years for the person to stop reaching out. It was random prior to that, although I did block everything. Some texts might have been sent that I don't know about. Block calls go into a separate section on my phone, and I would sometimes get multiple daily calls. Sometimes I would get one call every month. It was pretty random. Over the last 6 months, I received messages from flying monkeys, which I ignore, but nothing from the family perpetrator. Kathy Cat 5959 says, I cut my dad off 36 years ago. To me, he was a toxic parent. As an adult, I decided I didn't have to put up with it anymore. I'm in my 60s now and living a peaceful life. He is still alive, but I know nothing about him because I don't care. Just another person in the world, just not in my space or life. Underscore HOBI underscore says, I'm 51. My mom is 70. I've gone no contact twice, starting in 2016, each time for about a year. We are now very low contact. We text maybe once every few months, talk on the phone only on holidays and birthdays. It's cordial but fake. Thing is, I let go of my mom or any hope of a good relationship years ago. You have to allow yourself to grieve. The first time I went no contact, I literally felt as if she had kicked the bucket, and I grieved for a while. The second time was more letting go of the hope. I no longer have any delusions of us having something special, even though she thinks we do. She's the queen of fake and shoving stuff under the rug. She was my first and primary and has never done any healing or going to therapy, so she's still not a safe person for me or my kids to be themselves around. And that matters for your peace and for that of your child or children. I've made peace of not having a relationship with my mother. Thankfully, I have friends that fill the role, and I fill that role for them as well. New Paintings 9801 says, while I never labeled this feeling as grieving, thank you for your insight. Sundancer 2788 says, hubby cut his mom off after decades of emotional abuse. He never realized how she treated me and our kids until I pointed out her behavior a few years ago. He began looking at interactions with a far more critical eye, and the icing was when she posted on social media that she was dancing on his dad's grave. He had a good relationship with his dad. Valley Lemon. There comes a point where you have to make peace with the fact that this person is broken and that expecting that they'll suddenly become a different person is a choice you're making and can't stop making. This may require doing some formal trauma work. I know from doing grief work with adult children of narcissists and other abusers that even with decades of no contact and doing enough trauma work to not be surprised anymore that their abuser is abusive, it hits hard when they're gone, because when they're gone permanently, because there's always going to be a little ember inside you that hopes that one day they're going to wake up and hold and recognize you're a person who deserves so much more from them. And they're going to march right over and fix it all. Not that would even work if it happened, and it's not even going to happen, but the end of that tiny little ember of hope is really painful for a lot of people and re triggers a lot of trauma. I know if there's anything you can do differently to prevent it, just prepare for it. A lot of people are distressed to find they grieved their abuser, but we're weird at the brain stem level to live in packs, and it's just a big deal when those people pass. It's just how we're built. I don't know anybody later in life who regretted their estrangement, only that they didn't do it sooner or more firmly. I do have a couple of friends dealing with highly determined narc parents who routinely hire private detectives or even fly to their city and follow them around and sometimes try to make contact. And it's ishy to be forced to live with extra security and what kind of money y'all got? And constant sensation of what's next. But it would only be worse if they allowed any connection, so they just deal with it and always check the doorbell camera before answering. I mean, you should do that anyway, but PC Victim 100 says, my only regret was that we weren't nicer to each other when we were together. This person seems like they take some responsibility as well, I guess. Specifically underscore waving says, I'm 63. I went NC 8 or 9 years ago with my toxic stepmother and my father, who has the emotional intelligence of a squirrel. They gave my stepmother complete control of the narrative of my life to other family members. I assume she is trash talking me as when I reached out to one family member 5 years ago, I was quickly shut down. Initially, I grieved the loss of my extended family until I realized I really wasn't losing anything. My cousins all had completely different lifestyles than I did growing up, and even when they were financially able to, none of my family members ever took me in as a young child who desperately needed a home. I have never felt like a member of my father's family, so I ended up losing nothing I ever had. With the added benefit of not having to endure the pain and toxicity of my stepmother. Win-win and no regrets. About 2 years in, I realized my children had no extended family members. They are now adults and we are close, supportive of each other, and regularly spend time together. So this falls into the quality over quantity thing. It's not like they were close to these people when we were in contact anyway. My bio mom, who never raised me, and I have been low contact for about 5 years. We do fake little check ins every 3 months or so. I think my only motivation for doing this is I have some belief that is probably Uranus that I will feel less guilty after she passes away. At some point along the way, I quit loving her when my brain finally accepted how and who she really is. When I quit seeking her love and approval, I could finally let go. No one in my family has reached out to me since I have gone no contact with my stepmother. All of my bio mother's siblings are gone. Slenderella 148 says, I'm so sorry for your pain, OP. I don't have firsthand knowledge of this exact situation, but I do have estrangement in my family. I want to say, your mom loves you. That's why she is regretful. But lots of people simply do not have the tools or desire to make real and lasting change. It is her loss, for sure. But I understand yours are your children as well. Sending lots of love your way. Limp dash preference dash 1706 says, I 70 male cut off communications with my mother-in-law after my late wife passed from cancer 2 decades ago. Her mother abused her emotionally and physically when she was a little girl. Although the physical abuse stopped in her teen years, the emotional abuse continued. The mother-in-law perpetrator passed about 5 years ago. She has 6 children and only 2 attended the memorial service. That there was only 7 people at the service. I watched on Zoom because it was during COVID, is an indication of her abusive history. In hindsight, no contact with my late mother-in-law was the smartest decision. Eggy Rose says, I'm 44 and mine passed earlier this year. Though we had been low contact, no contact for about 3 years prior, I feel nothing. She had already wrung out enough tears and misery from me while alive, and her passing was a non event. She basically cycled through all of the categories of narcissism throughout my life. So I endured emotional and physical abuse from her. My only regret was not cutting contact with her sooner because my health, physical and mental, dramatically improved when I did. It's added years back to my life and life to my remaining years. Without the constant dark cloud in my life that was her, I found the mental bandwidth to actually start taking care of myself. I eat right, exercise, sleep well, etc. I swear the woman was an energy vampire sucking the life out of me to prolong her own. Like I visibly started looking fitter and younger while she quickly withered away. Understanding Clean 33 says, I recently stopped communicating with my mother and I feel a lot of guilt. My mom has a lot of narcissistic and manipulative features, but she is also very sick. I heard that they sometimes act sick. I'll probably cave and start talking to her again soon, especially since her entire side of the family stopped speaking to me when I went no contact with her. You need to speak to them anyway. What they got to talk about? Irma's World 57 says, oftentimes, the family you create later in life is the family that will be there for you. Bath Acceptable 1812 says block her on everything. Melodic underscore says it's been 35 years plus years since I spoke or have seen my mother. I am the oldest of 5 kids and wasn't allowed a normal childhood because she was a religious nutbag too busy popping out the next kid, then dumping them. Housework, cooking, and cleaning was in my lap while she sat on her dumpster all day watching soap operas. She could have been depressed. Not making excuses, I just be trying to understand. But it sounds like she was depressed, and if she was constantly popping babies out, how? Like, who was the partner? You know what I mean? I couldn't stay after school for activities, go over friends' house, or even have them over because I was needed to clean and cook before my a-hole father got home. Yeah, I kind of figured he was an a-hole. They divorced after I left home at 18 because she probably wasn't doing anything and he probably was like, somebody's got to do it. All this to say, no regrets. I hear she is going to have her lawyer mail us letters when she passes. My letter's going straight in the effing trash can. Read it first. It might be something in there. Prairie Girl says, I've cut my mother off and she doesn't even realize it. She do. I treat her with the same level of curiosity I would give a stranger on the street, no more, no less. And it's working great. How are you? Is enough to fill my part of the conversation until it's time for me to go. Great rock for the win. Ladder Dash Preparation 63 says, I'm 45. Cut my abusive dad out when I was 18. Never regretted it. He sends a message online every other year or so, and I ignore it. He's still in my siblings' lives and torments them. At almost 80 years old, he hasn't changed one bit. The other, I'm sorry, I'll be doing my Duolingos. And that was the final post or reply. I would say that everyone deserves peace. Everyone deserves love. You don't have to settle for any type of treatment just so that you can have someone, be it mom, dad, husband, wife, children. In my opinion, your title doesn't matter to someone. Well, your title shouldn't matter to someone who's being abused because abuse can take a real toll on your body, your life, your physical health, your mental health. And then I look at abuse or a person being abused as the abuse you're accepting from someone. Like, what's the point? What's the purpose? What do you get for accepting someone's abuse just because you're saying they're your family on whatever level? What's the purpose of you receive? Like, what happens? Okay, let's say you was built forward tough and you accepted that abuse throughout your whole life or their whole life, whichever comes first. In the end, what good did that do you? So don't accept anyone's abuse. You deserve to be appreciated, loved, and not just tolerated or a glutton for someone else's punishment or a punching bag for someone else's punishment. I totally agree that God made us to be in community with others, be it your family, your biological family, or the family you create later on in life. Whomever you decide to be around, make sure that it's around someone that you don't have to question their love and appreciation for you. And I would request before you go no contact that you make sure you voice that you don't have to necessarily say I'm gonna go no contact with you, but I just would hope that the person who is going to go no contact, well, I guess you would definitely go no contact for good reasons, but I would say do what feels right, okay? You don't deserve to be abused by anyone, regardless if they birth you or not. And that's all I got on that. Sending everyone positive love, positive energy, and love. Bye, Jen.